This Racing Life with Albasti Equiworld, the leading supplier of horse feeds and supplements.
Welcome to a new series of This Racing Life, a show that in the past has taken us all around the British Isles, to Ireland, to France, and to lands even further afield. This week, we are in the picturesque countryside surroundings of Yorkshire and David O'Mara Racing, home to crack sprinter, star of Lady M. Here's what's coming up on this week's show.
And then she'd won a full Great British bonus at Redcar, and then she followed up with a 50% British bonus at Ripon. So 10 days into her racing season, and she's almost paid for herself.
She's 114 rated at the moment, so at the moment she isn't the best we've had, but she looks like she could be.
You know, I trust them girls implicitly, and I think we work really well together, and it's nice that we've all built this together. It's not just me, you know, I can't do it on my own, so.
It's all for fun, it's all for a good cause. It's a really good way of raising funds, and everyone can have like a fun day out.
So delighted to be doing the sponsor walk alongside so many other people, raising money for an amazing cause. Racing Welfare is racing's charity. Everyone who works in racecourses, racing yards, studs, broadcasters, you know, Racing Welfare are there for racing's workforce when they're needed.
A bit like the cornfield behind me, last year Star of Lady M did some strong harvesting, winning 6 times throughout the course of the campaign. Her owner, Mike Madden, is extremely fond of her, she being his first ever racehorse, and look what she's done so far. We've come to talk to him about her career to date and what might be to come in the future, and catch up with her trainer, David O'Mara, about some other really classy fillies.
When we were at the sales, 15,000 guineas was a ridiculous amount. The first one we looked at the sales, book 3, went for 80,000, and my first thought was we were at the wrong sale. All the Thursday of book 3, prices went through the roof, and we didn't actually get to place a bid on a horse until almost the last lot of the day, and we didn't get that one either. So, you know, you came to Friday and still prices were too high until all of a sudden, 4:30, this filly came into the ring. Jamie Osborne stopped bidding at 14,000, we got it at 15, and I have to say the hammer took a long time to come down.
I can believe it. And she performed very well from an early stage in her career. Her 2-year-old campaign was very profitable for you. Did it surprise you at all how well she did?
Well, we bought her with a view to the fact that she was Great British bonus registered, because, you know, we knew if she won one race, she'd go some way to repaying the purchase price, but also, you know, the training fees are not cheap either. So we actually attacked this with a budget of 50,000 for the first year. When Jason Kelly, David's assistant, rang and said, she's out on the grass in Malton, if she does okay, we'll be racing her. And we're like, this was end of March, season had barely started. And then a couple of days later, yeah, she's entered at Redcar on the 4th of April. So, as I say, it was the 4th 2-year-old race of the season, and we had a runner. Didn't know what to expect. Travelled up there in the car, got there before the course had even opened, we were that keen, and Jason had called on the way up and said there's 2 horses that have already raced, we're going to track in behind them. One had come second in the Brocklesby, Primrose Ridge, I think the other had finished 3rd at Kempton. We stood in the stands and we just, the plan went out the window from as soon as the gates opened, as the horses parted, and we just stayed up with the favourite Primrose Ridge. Took over in the final furlong and went away to win by 3/4 of a length, and we just didn't know what to do. We stood in the wrong place. Tim Easterby had to tell us to go to the winner's enclosure, and then we got the presentation and champagne and all that, and obviously your phone goes a bit mental, but we couldn't get into the rest of the racing, so we just went home.
But it must have been some feeling, not only getting the win, but also with the thought that there might be so much more to come, having won first time up.
Well, I think the fact that we'd beaten the second in the Brocklesby as well. You know, the Brocklesby had been a few days earlier. Primrose Ridge had been bought very expensively by Ammo Racing between the Brocklesby and our race. So we kind of thought, yeah, she might be something special. And David was very keen to get another run into her. We thought we were going to Beverley after we got back from our holiday, which was to be 2 days later. But then again, Jason rang me and said, we're in Ripon in 10 days time. So, you know, a quick return on our investment. She'd won a full Great British bonus at Redcar, and then she followed up with a 50% British bonus at Ripon. So, you know, 10 days into her racing season, and she's almost paid for herself.
You know, Mike's easy to work with. He takes a lot of work out of it at times.
Yeah, I can imagine that's true. We're next to Star of Lady M here.
There she is here, yeah.
And she has been quite the star for you, hasn't she, over the last couple of
She
years?
has. She was a very good 2-year-old. I think she might have won 4 times. It was Havana Grey's first crop. She won the Hillary Needler, if I can remember rightly, and ended up getting black type at Ripon in August. Yeah, you know, these 2-year-olds, sometimes they can end up finishing their 2-year-old year with an elevated rating because they're only running against their own age group, and they're handicapped, you know, relative to their own age group. And then when they get chucked into the wider pool of horses, their mark might not be competitive. So I just thought she was going that way. That's probably why we kept her going through the winter, you know. But to see her then, you know, climb back up and go beyond what she'd done as a 2-year-old really surprised me. I didn't expect it at all, I must say.
Let's fast forward, shall we, to last year, because for a while she was not in the doldrums as such, but she didn't produce some of her best form for various different reasons. But last year she really got back on track, didn't she?
She did. When she was a 2-year-old, she was actually rated at 92 after she won the handicap at Musselburgh. So we knew she had the ability. They don't give you a rating of 92 if you're not very good. So, you know, the fact that during a 3-year-old career she toiled a bit, she had a couple of moments where she came back, but it was a struggle. She did get a vital win in the November, so, you know, we could say she's won at 2 and 3 years. But at 4, she progressed through the grades. We always thought that she was better running in a class 3, where she carried a little bit less weight, than burdening top weight in a class 4. I think that proved to be the case at Nottingham. So she won at Thirsk in a class 3, progressed to Newmarket in a class 3. She recovered in time to go to Chepstow for the Racing League, and then the van broke down, so she never actually made it to Chepstow. We did, but the horse didn't. So by the time it came to York, she'd not raced for 5 weeks. We were a bit sceptical about that. David wasn't sure whether she'd handle the fast ground. Would it all happen too quick for her? It was a roll of the dice. We thought, yeah, we're going for it. So we went to York. We were sort of second or third favourite. It wasn't a complete shock that she won that race, but I think it was a complete shock to everybody that she won it by 4 1/4 lengths or whatever the winning distance ended up being.
It was an extraordinary performance, one of the standout of the whole season, I would say.
I'll never forget the words that Nick Luck said. You won't see many 5 furlong handicaps won like that. You know, it just very iconic.
And I guess when she did that, you must have thought, well, how high can she fly here?
That is exactly what we thought. We put her in at Southwell in another Racing League race very quickly because she went up £10 for that win, and she would have only carry a £5 penalty at Southwell. So we kind of had to do that. Probably came out a bit too quickly. But then she on the back of that, she got an entry for the Ayr Gold Cup. And we also entered her in the listed Arran Scottish Sprinter Ayr the day before the Gold Cup, which was always, for me, it's not as prestigious a race as the Ayr Gold Cup, but in terms of a pedigree, it's a listed race, and that was our real target.
So at the end of last season, she ended up rated at 110, 109, and she's come into her 5-year-old campaign having had a bit of a setback, but we're expecting to see her, aren't we, quite soon?
Yeah, she was rated 110 after that race, which was a £15 rise. As the handicappers tend to do, she got adjusted down to 109, so that's her current rating. We did go to Dundalk for a listed race, for a Group 3 race, the Mercury. She didn't get a great draw, but we decided to go anyway. And, you know, she finished 6th, not beaten too far in a Group 3, so we know that ability is there to compete at group level. We had a full programme planned for this year, but it wasn't to be early on because she had a problem that took a while to detect. So David's given her fantastic care. Spoken to Tash, her work rider, on a regular basis, and you know, she's progressing. She'll be being ridden very soon, and we're looking for a return in August.
Which is really exciting, of course, to see her back. And although she's missed some of the season, at least she'll get in. I think the Beverley Budget is perhaps on the agenda, and potentially a tilt at the Abbey. I know that's sort of pie in the sky thinking perhaps, but at the same time, she will have earned her place there if she goes. Well,
after the Ayr victory, we met a lot of racing's great and good, all a few Guinnesses in, but they were all saying you've got to supplement her for the Abbey. And a cost of €26,000 for a race that is very draw dependent, very ground dependent. It was too much of a gamble. Whereas now, the entry closes at the end of July. If she is progressing as we'd hoped, she won't have raced by then, but it's worth the entry fee if there's any possibility that she's going to get to the Abbey.
You know, these sprinters often are better for running, so you know she has a bit of work to do if she is to end up in France. In the Abbey, and again then ground is a big concern because she doesn't want it slow, and the Abbey can be draw dependent, so while it's targeted in the horizon, it's very much a distant one at the moment.
And I think if conditions came up right in France and the draw came up right too, then on what she showed last year at her best, she'd have to have a good shout.
Well, we've just come out of Royal Ascot, and Frost at Dawn finished second in the King Charles. And was third behind her at Ayr. So we fancy our chances.
Quite right too. And it looks as though she'll be retired after that, but there is a potential plan to go abroad, maybe to Dubai at some stage?
We would have to speak to David about that. He's obviously got a very good record of horses going to Dubai. But once you get to October, 5 furlong sprints are not exactly happening every week, but racing does happen elsewhere. She is going to finish at the end of this season. That's the plan. When this season ends, we're not quite sure.
Yeah, and there was never a temptation to get her going all the way through next season.
Because of where we're at, we've not even considered that. You know, if you think that she doesn't race again this season, we've lost the opportunity for a foal next season. If we did it again, she'd then be, you know, she'd be a 6-year-old going into breeding at the age of 7. So we want to do what's best for her. You know, she deserves a chance to try and win at the top table. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
Right next to Star of Lady M is the wonderful, the very exciting Estrange. I saw a quote of yours recently saying potentially the best you've had, and she's looked so good so far. Yeah,
look, we've been lucky enough to have quite a few Group 1 winners, a few of them grey actually as well. Amazing Maria won 2 Group 1s. She was a fantastic mare for us, and obviously Lord Lillard's a Queen Anne, and you know various others. The Abbey you mentioned, Moving Time won that, but she's 114 rated at the moment. So at the moment she isn't the best we've had, but she looks like she could be.
So it's quite a nice position for you really, because there are a few big potential targets on the agenda, the likes of the fillies and mares on Champions Day and an Arc Tilt, as well as a couple of other races.
We prefer to keep her at 1.5 miles. So Haydock for the Lancashire Oaks, the Yorkshire Oaks would be brilliant if the ground was suitable. Obviously it's a Group 1, and then if we're still, if we're still going well, you'd love to be able to consider the Arc and the fillies and mares at Ascot.
Yeah, particularly as that time of year the ground has usually got juice in it.
It does, yeah. And while no means do I think she is dependent on soft heavy, she was very good at Haydock on her last start and good ground. I do think she copes with it very well.
I thought she was so impressive then, the way she quickened up.
The ease with which she travelled really, she sort of arrives into the race like she's just joined it, so she's quite special.
Next up, nestled deep within the heart of the Yorkshire moors, is the yard of Gemma Tutty, who's made quite a splash in the training ranks since taking over from her mother just after the COVID pandemic. We've come to Osmotherley to find out a little bit more about what makes Gemma Tutty tick.
I did my trainer's modules for a reason. I was maybe being a little bit reluctant with myself at admitting that I was going to go down that road because, I'd seen how difficult it was. and all consuming. And having held a jockey's licence for 10 years, obviously I didn't ride at a high level or anything, but I took it really seriously. I wouldn't let myself go off on holiday and do all the things that when I look back in hindsight I should have been doing, because now I can't. But yeah, it just went from one like very serious occupation straight into another, and it would have been nice, I suppose, in an ideal world to have took a bit of time out in between.
So when you were doing your psychology studies, is that ever considered as a potential career, or did you always have your eye on racing?
I'm not sure it's the standard career path for a racehorse trainer. I did think I was genuinely going to go into that as a field. I applied for higher education in psychology, and then when I didn't get on, I went out to Dubai for Saeed bin Sarur that winter, and I planned to do volunteering while I was over there and sort of try again the following year to get on that higher education, but I just enjoyed it so much that I decided I needed to stay in racing at that point. And I suppose that was maybe the tipping point of going into racing full time rather than down the psychology route as a second career after riding.
Well, you must pick up loads, particularly from trainers like Saeed bin Sarur.
Yeah, and like just you learn a lot from sitting on them. I know what speed we're going, I know how they move, you know, so many different things that maybe you don't even pick up if you stood watching them. But yeah, like there's little bits of every yard I've ever been in that we've brought forwards into what we do, and just sort of adapted everything into what suits us and what works with the facilities that we have.
I guess with your mum training for so many years, you must have had it in the back of your mind that there was the possibility you could take over at some stage.
Yeah, we had a conversation. It would have been the back end of 2021, I think. And I said to her, like, how are you feeling about all this? What do you want to do? Because I hadn't really sounded her out at that stage. We're not great talkers in my family. And she said, I don't want to do this anymore. She was desperate for me to take over. So I think, you know, to some people, they're like, why didn't you go on a joint licence? You've sort of stolen it off your mum. But the conversation didn't go like that. She was ready, you know, to have a bit of a life again. And she does do the morning feed, so she does the early shift every morning, and she still loves her riding out. So I think she gets the best of both worlds now.
It was hard to let go, I'm not going to lie, in the beginning, because you're used to doing things your way and someone else comes in and does it a different way. But she's expanded it, she's got more syndicates and owners with a bit of money to spend. I was doing it on a cheap budget and only could afford sort of the class 6s and the class 5s. She's been able to scale the heights and go to Ascot and Epsom and run in the better races and buy better horses. So fair play to her, she's doing very well.
And you say you picked up a lot from different trainers. I imagine you picked up a fair bit from Karen as well.
Yeah, definitely. In regards to how to train on this gallop, you know,
It's quite idiosyncratic, isn't it? It's not the most sort of normal gallop in the world. It's quite unique.
One jockey came in, I think it was Rowan Scott, and described it as a roller coaster. I wasn't sure whether to be insulted at that or not. But you know, it teaches the 2-year-olds to really balance themselves. They come from the breeze ups or from the pre-trainers, and they haven't done all the twists and turns, ups and downs, but when they get to the track, they're expected to do that. So I don't think it's a disadvantage at all. I mean, the only complaint you could have is that you can't get them up to full speed on it because of the climb, but I would box them up for the experience anyway, so I don't think it really does us a disservice, to be honest.
Because you do the odd away day gallop, don't you?
Mainly with unraced 2-year-olds. I can get a horse fit on this gallop without taking it away. You know, Look Back Smiling won the Spring Mile fresh and he'd not been away from home last year. But the 2-year-olds, it's all about the experience for me, and I can't gauge how ready they are without that away day and sort of seeing how they take that mentally and physically, to be fair.
And this is Look Back Smiling, who did really well last year. Hopefully, you'll be riding this chap in the charity race at Thirsk.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. He's my little sweetheart. I ride him a lot at home. He's a cheeky monkey, but he's got loads of ability when he wants to. We need a bit of cut in the ground for him, so let's hope we get a bit of rain.
And I guess given your experience in the saddle, you must think you've got a pretty good chance.
Well, I hope so, on a horse like him, but it's all for fun, it's all for a good cause. You've got to think about the fundraising side of it. It's a really good way of raising funds, and everyone can have like a fun day out.
And I guess for a young trainer starting out like yourself, having that flagship horse in Mostly Cloudy is so important to put you on the map.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a big deal people made of him winning 5 on the spin, and to be fair, we could have kept going if we'd kept him in handicaps, but you know, we were brave and went to York and so nearly pulled it off, but as it happened, we tried to chase down the leader and he went from 2nd to 5th in the last half furlong, just petered out. But if we'd have ridden him differently, I'm fairly confident we could have got him to place in that race. But yeah, like, that was unreal to go to Ascot with a favourite, obviously not Royal Ascot, but just Ascot Racecourse. I'd never been, and it was, you know, I'd only been training for a few months, so you know, that felt special, and everything's felt special as we've sort of got to, you know, the higher levels that we've reached from that point in the first season. But that felt like a massive deal at the time, you know, and then obviously Epsom and Royal Ascot and everything came in later seasons, and you know, that felt like pinch me moments when we got to that level, but it just keeps you wanting more and more.
And you've got 7 new boxes about to be put in, so you need to fill those as well, don't you?
Yeah, few sales to go out in the next couple of weeks. Definitely going to get the head down and work these sales hard and really try and get some fresh talent into the yard.
Do you enjoy that part of the job?
To be fair, like, the sales are hard work, but the change of scenery is quite nice mentally, and like, it's a good chance to like get to know other trainers better, meet new owners. I've found a lot of new owners at the sales. You know, there's always horses that aren't selling, and the consignor or the owner needs to do something with that horse, and if you're not there, then you know, your name isn't going to be in the hat. Because
when you first started, since then you have expanded numbers wise quite considerably, and you're looking to do that even more, I suppose, in the future.
Yeah, we'll be up to 36, well, hopefully by next week. I think we started with about 18 licensed boxes. So, I mean, that's doubling in size. It doesn't sound like you know, it's still small numbers in the grand scheme of things, but to double what you've started with is quite big, I suppose. Still got the same 3 members of staff that I started with. And then we've, you know, got Mum and a new girl that did her 6-week placement with us that we've been really impressed with, so we've just offered her a job. You know, I trust them girls implicitly, and I think we work really well together, and it's nice that we've all built this together. It's not just me, you know, I can't do it on my own.
And you were saying to me earlier, when you target races down south, you're quite specific about race planning and aiming for specific races, and I get a feeling that's quite a big part of your MO.
Look, the transport costs a fortune at the end of the day. So if I'm justifying taking that owner's horse down south, I want to be confident that it's got a really good chance of winning, because we're going to disappoint ourselves and we're going to disappoint the owners if we're traipsing horses to Brighton to not, you know, win some prize money. But, you know, have horse will travel. If the race is right, we'll go for it. But, you know, ordinarily we'd try and ply our trade at the more local tracks as long as the opportunities are right for that particular horse.
Next up, we've come to York, to the historic heartland of the county, to catch up with York Racecourse CEO William Darby, to chat about a busy rest of the campaign and about a special charity walk. William, you're always hugely innovative here at York, and here we are in the Bustardthorpe End, which is pretty new as of the EBOR meeting last year when Her Majesty Queen Camilla opened it on the Saturday, and so far it's been a big success.
Yeah, we've been really pleased, Tom, with the reaction to this area. It's grandstand and paddock facility, so it's great to be able to really improve the race day experience and the facilities for people who are just coming racing for a great day out, to have a bet, to see the horses up. They can get up to the parade ring, but a lot of people are basing themselves in these facilities, which are a huge upgrade on what was there previously, and just a really comfortable, nice environment to enjoy racing.
And you always move with the times. You mentioned the canopy. I know that there's a bit of irrigation that's collected in a little tub underneath the ground, is that right?
Yes, beneath our feet, a huge, I think it's 16,000 litre tank.
Okay, so not a little tub then.
So that captures all the rainwater from the canopy above and the stands adjacent. So we're storing that water, and then that waters the plants around us, irrigates it, it flushes the toilets. So really a cycle of water, using a precious resource as best we can.
And has this meant that you've been able to raise the capacity of York?
It's not so much about raising the overall number, but certainly giving a better experience to the crowds that we have. And we've had some really busy race days using these facilities. It wasn't here this time last year, but as you say, it was opened by Her Majesty at Ebor, and we've had some big race days since then.
I said you move with the times, not just in terms of the development here, but also in terms of the race programme. We've just had the Criterion Stakes, a big success and a nice build-up, I suppose, to the big Group 1 that's starting this year.
Yeah, we were thrilled to get the Group 3 Criterion, supported by Al Basti Equiworld Dubai, and as you say, over the 7 furlong trip, 1400 metre trip. So we introduced a run for free from that, bouncing on to the Sky Bet City of York, our newly upgraded Group 1 at the Ebor Festival. So I hope that works well as a Group 1. Lots of horses are talking about coming to it over the 1400 metres, and we feel it has a place in the programme. We certainly feel it justified its upgrade, and we're excited about the type of horses that are talking to us about targeting it this year on the Saturday, alongside the Sky Bet Ebor itself, the richest handicap in Britain.
I'm glad we're getting a little bit of walking practice in, William, because you've got a big charity walk coming up, haven't you? 22 miles of it.
Yeah, I'm sort of delighted, Tom, to be raising money for racing welfare. This Abbey to Castle walk, Whitby to Scarborough, on Sunday the 6th of July. Lots of ups and downs, I think, along the coastal path, a beautiful part of the world. So delighted to be doing the sponsor walk alongside so many other people, raising money for an amazing cause. Racing Welfare is racing's charity. Everyone who works in racecourses, racing yards, studs, broadcasters, you know, Racing Welfare are there for racing's workforce when they're needed, and it's an honour to raise money for them, and delighted to be part of it.
Yeah, talking of raising money, you've got nearly 20,000, haven't you, which is quite some achievement.
Well, people have been so generous, and I'm so appreciative and grateful for everyone who sponsored me and supported the walk. I think it's a great tribute to Racing Welfare that people are so willing to dig deep and support.
You've always had a big sort of charity element to York Racecourse, and you yourself. We just had the Macmillan race day, didn't we, recently? That was a huge success, as it always is. Now you're doing this, so loads going on charity-wise.
Yeah, and I think that's replicated across the board amongst racing, both racecourses and racing yards and the open days. That, you know, that racing is embedded in its communities and always is. It gives us so much, and something perhaps in racing where we don't celebrate and talk enough and profile enough is how much community work, charitable work that the racing industry provides to the wider economy and the communities. Something we're very proud to be part of, and yeah, I think it should be celebrated.
Well, the finishing line isn't quite in sight for William Derby just yet, but unfortunately it is for this week's episode of This Racing Live. With our thanks to David O'Mara, to Mike Madden, and to Gemma and Karen Tutty, and indeed to all here at York Racecourse. Until next time, it's goodbye.
This Racing Life with Al Basti Equiworld, the leading supplier of horse feeds and supplements.